we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. We're going to have a little bit of an exercise. We're going to talk about money. So let's look at Mark chapter 4. We're going to go into 7 and 8. It says this, it says, and some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it and yielded it no crop. But other seed fell on good ground and yielded a crop that sprang up, increased, and produced some 30, some 60, and some 100-fold. Down in Mark 4, skip down, and this is where Jesus is explaining what the reason behind the parable was, because the disciples had asked him. And he says this, now these are the ones, referring to that same seed, the third seed, if you will, that's in Mark 4, 7 through 8. Now these are the ones sown among thorns. They are the ones who hear the word, and the cares of this world, the deceitfulness of wealth. In your mind, mentally underline the words deceitfulness of riches, and the desires of other things entering in, choking the word, and it became unfruitful. So we know that increasing in production leads to fruit, 30, 60, 100-fold. But there's also some things that can lead to unfruitfulness. In other words, when we say fruitful, it's us giving and it multiplying, getting bigger and bigger because we did one single thing, one single act. But the interesting thing about this is it's talking about the choking out of something because of the deceitfulness of riches. When I first heard this, I always asked myself, I said, well, the deceitfulness of riches is just the idea of somebody going after something. I think of things like the lottery, and you're hoping that you're going to be one out of 7 million, whatever it is, based on what the amount is, that it's going to be you. It's unlikely that it will be, but we still do it. I used to think that was the deceitfulness of wealth. But then I began to understand a little bit more that deceitfulness of riches or wealth is not just what we're doing, coming up with schemes. It's a mindset of scarcity. What stops us from really giving? What stops us from wanting to engage in different things? And when it comes to money, when somebody's asked us for money, whatever the case may be, it's the mindset, that scarcity, that causes a lot of other things. Scarcity of the mind leads to poverty of the heart. When our mind is constantly thinking on lack, what does lack lead to? Fear. What does fear do? Causes us to make decisions, not good decisions. But when we have scarcity on our minds all the time, it leads to poverty of the heart. And what that's saying is a scarcity ultimately leads to a permanent thought process of, I ain't got enough. When I was a kid, oftentimes what you would find is you go off into a store and you go into these stores and you'd see something and you look over at your parents or whoever and say, I want to get that. Can I get that? And if you grew up where money was, scarcity was the mindset, what was the response? You think I'm made of money? And we began to have a scarcity mindset. Where did you first get your thought about money? Because little do you know it, if not addressed, will dictate everything. So you could be in a Bible study, you could be in church, and you could hear 1,000 times somebody say, give, do this, do that, be a part of this. And because of that, underneath programming, you may not move until you get to the place where you either have heard it enough or you believe it enough that you say, I gotta do it enough. And once you do it, you begin to exercise a new muscle.